Hey, welcome to my show. John Erickson here at Phillips Gallery. We're standing here looking at some of my paintings. I'll talk and give you some of my insights. And here's a wall of watercolors here. These paintings are done very quickly, very directly, and they use multiple mediums. I lay the thing in with watercolor, and then I begin to come back in with gouache and in some cases airbrush. And so I'll get a very direct, indirect kind of push and pull going on. But most of these paintings happened in 2 or 3 hours. Sometimes I'll come back in day 2 and have what I call a little tweak moment, but they happen very quickly, as opposed to my larger paintings. For example, this painting of the clown and the car, landscape format. We have water towers out here. A lot of process, thin paint, thick paint. Oftentimes I develop an image, I glaze it, I destroy it, and then I recontextualize it and come in outside the object with thin paint. There's a technique here on the car. I put down a very wet red glaze with acrylic medium. And while the glaze is still wet, I come back in with opaque paint and put in the highlights. And the highlights, they'll disperse into the halftone of red paint. This is a technique that I picked up from El Greco, the painter of ecstatic Catholicism. I was in Spain looking at his work, and I noticed that in draperies of his saints, pictured images of Christ, he would glaze the monochromatic drapery, the clothing of the saint, and then while the glaze was still wet, come back in with the highlights, and it was very, very dramatic. So I'm trying that technique in my world on a parked car. Okay, now we come over to this large painting, biggest painting in the show, 4 by 4 feet, and you notice the sky is red and green at exactly the same value. The two colors, red and green, complements, come in at exactly the same value, so when they do mix, they start to liven up and get quite vibratory. Okay, and as we go into the lower part of the painting, I'm doing a lot of destruction, creation, destruction. Part of my statement is that progress is not linear, so oftentimes I have to insult my own original intentions so that I can open up myself to the greater field of possibilities. And so finally, the painting begins to be solved. I get a composition working. You notice how the reds are triangulated. Keep your eye moving around. I have a red here, another red there. There's a faint red in a bucket down here and another red up there. Man with a little red hat, and then the central warmth of the figure. So I try to keep your eye moving, but the painting is really built with a lot of mud. One of my premises in the statement is mix up a bunch of grays of different temperatures and run them into each other. So you can see those muddy neutrals down here on the cube in the ground plane. And so accenting that with more saturated colorful moments. Okay, this painting is called Childhood. We've got this. This is one of my great nieces, and I was trying to crawl into the mystery of how to paint of a child, and it kept going on and on and on. And I would, put her in, take her out, put her in, take her out, and then the environment began to develop with this suggestion of a drapery, a tree, even a water tower out here. So it becomes kind of a mystical, dreamlike space, which is the kind of world a child lives in, a 5-year-old. I'm trying to get back to the timeless fantasy of a child. Here's a bird flying in, flowers. But there's a lot of glazing, scumbling. Scumbling is where you drag the paint. Glazing is where you put down a wet sheet of transparent paint. So those types of paint go back and forth to create a kind of entertainment just in the level of the material. Okay, this little painting, in terms of a paradox, I had an intention to make a night painting, a landscape painting at night. That was the intention. But then I'm going, okay, business as usual. I sort of lost interest, but then I let it sit for a while, came back in, penciled in a clown-like figure, got committed to it, put some more opaque paint on it, glazed it with red, came back in with the opaque gray, had him using a cell phone, and then doing some kind of slightly macabre gesture with his hand. Then all of a sudden, this night scene becomes a wall, implied by the floorboard and a little bit of horizontal floor space. And then I come back on and insult the illusion with a electrical outlet and a plug. The title here is Addiction, and it seems to have some references to our reliance on the cell phone, modern conveniences, not really ever being outside, only the illusion of being outside, that paradoxical type of conundrum that gets going in a postmodern life. So come down to the gallery, you'll see a lot more of this, and you can unravel my paradoxes and yours too. Thanks.